Cyberpunk 2077 had one of the worst launches in recent gaming history. It was released with game-breaking bugs and performance issues, and some scenes even caused seizures. It was a very bad launch, so much so that it was pulled from the PlayStation Store shortly after its release. But that was in 2020. Fast forward to 2024, and this is an entirely different game. CD Projekt Red has completely turned Cyberpunk around, and while it's not perfect and there are still some bugs, now is the time to play this game. So, here's why you should play Cyberpunk 2077 in 2024. First, as an avid first-person hater, I want to say that this is actually one of Cyberpunk's main selling points. The first person does not hinder the gameplay, the cinematics, or the combat. It truly enhances every aspect of the game. This game absolutely sold me on first-person immersion. Every interaction that V has is so intentional and meticulously crafted that it feels like you're there talking to the characters yourself. Every cutscene is like you're really experiencing the scene. The characters are heavily animated and move around your vision to emphasize that you're only in control of so much, while also having freedom to move around as well. So if you're a first-person hater, I get it, I am too. But seriously, this game is better for being in first person. And even though we can't see V's body for most of the game, Shirami Lee, FemV's voice actor, did an amazing job. At first, I wasn't entirely sold on it, and it did take me a little bit to really get into it and appreciate the performance, but Shirami did such a good job adding so much emotion and sincerity behind V that I wasn't really bothered at all that I couldn't see V's body movement and facial animations. The voice was really enough to convey everything that the story needed, which is my second reason that you should play Cyberpunk. For V. V is now one of 3 protagonists that I have personally ever connected with and cared about. Their journey becomes very personal, and while there isn't a ton of room for role-playing outside of the backgrounds and choices, I love when protagonists are more defined and I can slightly change their story and personality versus being a non-voiced blank slate. V is their own person in Night City, and you feel that with the way V interacts with the world. Night City lives and breathes without V, and that immersion of not feeling like everything relies on you was something I really enjoyed. I loved V's character arc and journey, and it's probably because of the voice acting being so strong. Which brings me to my favorite performance in the game, and that's from Johnny, who was involved in the game's marketing, so it's not really a spoiler, but I won't go into details. But Keanu Reeves as Johnny was honestly perfect. I expected to be constantly reminded that it was Keanu Reeves, but I didn't think about him at all. Johnny was so defined and charming, and his journey added so much to the story. And Keanu's voice acting and mocap acting was really mind-blowing. I was very impressed. Honestly, an amazing character, and Johnny has become one of my all-time favorites. So if you're a fan of character and story-focused games, Cyberpunk might be for you. Not only are the companions and side characters well done, they're also all extremely unique. It's also fairly rare to run into the same NPCs, which added a lot of immersion to the world. Night City is very fleshed out. Every bit of city feels lived in and intentional. The world building is never ending. On top of the books and comics, Night City has a ton of lore and story to explore within it, and those are my favorite types of stories. There is also not a lot of filler. I ran through the entire game and was always finding new NPCs to interact with or places to explore. It never ended. Time-wise, if you want to just do the main story and companion quest, it is probably close to 30 to 40 hours. But if you want to explore the world and do all of the side content, it's easily at the very least 100 hours. I finished my first playthrough with about 70 hours, and I had a lot left. So if you like large exploratory games with a lot of lore and immersion, you'll love Cyberpunk. The side quests are also actual content. It isn't fetch quest or empty filler. Majority of the side quests also had new areas to explore that really surprised me. Or you met new interesting characters. There was a lot of depth in the side content, and some of my favorite characters were from the stuff that was easily missable. Another surprising selling point for me on this game was the combat. I'm actually not a gamer who really cares that much about combat or builds or tactical gameplay, but the combat was very, very fun. The types of weapons you can use and builds you can create for V were never ending, and the body modifications and technology you have access to made the combat so much more interesting. The cyber deck I used allowed me to slow time down, so I'd be able to snipe people, and then use quick hacks on the cameras and even made people kill themselves. It was a lot of fun. If you like combat and building certain gameplay styles, this game allows for that to happen. Which brings me to my next major selling point of this game: the choices. You have so many choices and consequences in this game. Some are felt immediately, some are felt later, but many times, especially in the Phantom Liberty DLC, I was often having to pause because I was so stressed out having to make these major choices. And all these choices lead into heavily branching narratives and a chance to explore how your V interacts with the world. I enjoyed just about every single side quest. But the star of the show was the main story. When I first started, I wasn't entirely sold on the game. It took me a few main story cutscenes to really pull me in. But the game asks some interesting questions about what it means to be alive. It explores themes that really only sci-fi can expand upon. If you enjoy existential questions about the meaning of life and happiness, and what it means to actually be alive and be conscious, and what human advancement looks like in a world of evolving technology and AI, then you'll love this story. And that goes for Phantom Liberty's story as well. And not everyone is going to agree with me about the endings, but for me, the endings blew me away. If you've played other RPGs with branching narratives and multiple endings such as Mass Effect, then you know that sometimes what is supposed to be 3 very different endings is actually one ending with similar choices. But that is not the case for Cyberpunk. The endings are very different. They are distinct in both the actual narrative and gameplay, but also their conclusions. They also made me feel very different things. And narratively, I think they all made sense. And they really did surprise me. I also felt like the outcomes fit the choices that I'd made. I give them so much credit for putting so much work into all those different endings. The endings also had some amazing visuals, which were present throughout the game. And this is a beautiful game. It's pretty rare that I actually care about photo modes in games. I don't usually stop to really appreciate scenery and graphics as much as I should. But with Cyberpunk, I took a ton of pictures of V with the in-game photo mode and loved exploring for new places to find good picture opportunities, which is really a first for me. Overall, the game was very surprisingly good. I went in it expecting not to like it, and I actually didn't fully get into it until the second time that I tried picking up the game, which was 3 years later. But I am glad that I waited until 2024 to actually play it. Since its first launch, there have been several patches to help with the bugs, and while there are still bugs, I didn't run into any major ones and didn't experience any major game-breaking bugs either. But as with all games this size and with this many choices and pieces of content, some bugs are inevitable. It's just the way that it is. And the game isn't perfect. Like I said, there's still bugs. And I didn't enjoy the driving. And the romance options are very limited. It's not a perfect game, but it pulled me in with the story and the characters, and I sincerely loved it. So if you love heavy narrative games that focus on characters and world building, and enjoy games with fast-paced experimental combat, and feeling like your choices and consequences matter, then you should play Cyberpunk 2077. I think it's a must for any sci-fi fan. And if you enjoy the game and want more, there's a really good anime that takes place before the game. And it's full of locations and characters from the game, and a bunch of Easter eggs. And there's also several comics and books that explore the art and world of Cyberpunk 2077 that I have been devouring. I love video game worlds with immersive and deep lore, and there are so many unanswered questions left to explore in this world. So if you enjoy fictional worlds with endless mysteries and theories, you'd love this game. And if you have played Cyberpunk 2077, I'd love to hear what you think about it. And if you haven't and you're interested in playing because of this video, make sure to let me know. And if you are interested in future Cyberpunk content and sci-fi RPG news, lore, and theory videos, make sure to subscribe for more. Thank you for watching, and especially thank you to all my channel members. See you next time.